Hello and welcome to Chicanime. My name is Lauren and today I am watching a Overlord extra video. So this one is by MahisTV. I've watched at least one video by them before. So this one is Intelligence in Overlord Makes Total Sense. This was another suggestion by a YouTube viewer, so thank you for that. Keep those suggestions coming. And then we'll go back to Annie News soon with some stuff about Ara and Mare, I think, is what the next Annie News videos are. But this is kind of fun to kind of play around and do some other things. So thank you so much for watching. Thanks for suggesting stuff for me. And these videos come out earlier on Patreon, if that is your kind of thing. So let's go.
One of the reasons why Overlord stands among my most liked shows is the way it handles intelligence. I love when being smart or dumb affects the plot and is not treated as some type of gag. Well, it is a running joke that Ainz has no idea what's going on or that Jircniv is prone to overthinking, but this is one of the few shows where characters are acting reasonably in accordance with their IQ. Hello, comrade, my name is Mahis. Come, get yourself a beverage and sit down with me. We got
should I get myself? No, I'll be fine. I just finished my coffee. It'll be all right. It'll be fine without the beverage. It's the last day of dry January, which I probably am not going to actually adhere to, honestly. But still, I've done really good this month. But the point is, he's also correct. I really do like it when people act in accordance to their IQ. Like, I've definitely experienced several shows, not just animes, but shows in general, where I'm just like, you have this character who's known to be smart, and yet they're acting super ridiculous. It's like, did they take all of their stupid pills today? What is happening with this character that makes them act like this? For why? For what? Why? What purpose? Like, and he's correct that Overlord usually avoids that.
Got my second favorite topic to discuss. Let me elaborate on what I mean by acting reasonably. Very often we see characters, especially villains, having all this information and ability to make the best decision, but failing to do so because plot or something. For example, All for One. I don't know what kind of explanation you need to pull out of your ass to convince me that a person who thrives on playing with people's lives and shaping the world into whatever he sees fit will not use Overhaul. Who the fuck needs tens of simple quirks to match All Might's punch when you could have finished him right then and there if you had Chisaki's quirk? Not to mention completely
probably
restoring your body, or even better, elevating Nobu's production to such a degree where you don't need to rely on an unstable kid for your grand master plan. Even if there is some limit to what quirks or how many of them All for One can take, why not give it to Garaki, your most loyal aide, to help him research and experiment?
I don't know. I've only seen 4 episodes of My Hero Academia because no one watched it when we were watching it, so we just stopped watching it.
In what world does the biggest of bats get his hands on the most broken power, in which he's an expert with decades of experience, and says, nah, I'd win? I'll tell you why that happens. Reason number 1. Plot convenience. If All for One behaved like the mastermind he was supposed to be, it'd be over before season 1 even started. Reason number 2. Writing. There are many aspects of being a good author. One of them is how much story they have conceived before actually writing it. Take Attack on Titan. Once you watch the show and go back to the early episodes, you'd be gobsmacked with the amount of hints and clues that were right in front of your eyes all along.
Okay, so apparently we're gonna see some spoilers for stuff in this one. I have not seen a lot of Attack on Titan. I've only seen like 2 seasons, I think, so I'm probably gonna get spoiled for some stuff. And it was a long time ago, and it was sporadic. I didn't see every episode in those 2 seasons. A roommate at the time was, so this was like 4 years ago then. Because my roommate at the time was watching it, and so I was watching it with her when I was around. But yeah, so some spoilers might happen in this video. But I was gonna say, yes, if the writers don't have a clear idea of where something is going, that definitely ends up assassinating characters a lot. Like, it's because they write themselves into a corner, and then the only way to write themselves out of it is for a character to do something incredibly stupid.
The name of the first episode won't let me lie. But what about My Hero? If we look back to the USJ arc, there is this one quirk they made a big deal about. Shock absorption, a direct counter to All Might and by extension, One for All. In the context of that part of the story, things kinda make sense. There is some mysterious power that can shove several quirks into one human. It's quite troublesome, yet once we've beaten and secured them, we shouldn't fight these exact quirks again. Yeah, about that. Turns out Garaki can duplicate quirks and has been doing that for a while, so why wouldn't you have a spare copy of it for future Nomos, or why the main villain doesn't have it during the fight with his arch nemesis? It makes no goddamn sense, and the only reasonable explanation I have is that the quirk duplication as a concept was created way later into the story.
That makes
Anyway,
sense.
this is not a My Hero Acca themed video, so let's talk about the right way to utilize your character's cognitive abilities, starting with someone who doesn't even have a brain, literally of course, Ainz making it up as he goes, all Gon-sama. Now this is somewhat worthy of a whole PhD paper on how can one be so incredibly clueless and still make the best possible decisions.
He gets
Let's break
lucky.
it down. First are his stats. His avatar's main attribute is in fact intelligence, which is maxed, and in addition, he has either maxed or very high luck stat.
Okay, so I was right. It is luck. I feel like I've looked at his stats before, or like it was shown how it works, and I forgot. But okay. So his luck, I was right. It is a lot of luck.
Considering that these characteristics have imprinted on him when he got transported into the new world, Momonga on paper, and as we saw many times during the story, is already a perfect improvisation artist.
Yeah, he's
However,
good at that.
we shouldn't give all credit to his character sheet, as the second part of his intellect is his very own.
Yeah, no, he is. I will give him that he's a great improviser. He's great at adapting to new things, to new information, to rolling with the punches, and to like kind of figuring out the best move to make in a certain position depending on what other people are doing. Like he's great at reading people. Like he's got a lot of skills. I will give him that. But if you watch my Overlord videos, you'll know, like, there's like a bunch of times where I have postulated a plan for him, and it turns out that that is, in fact, what the Demiurge was planning. Momonga had no idea. And I was like, but it was right there. And then I would feel weird about it because I'm like, I can't believe I'm on the same page as Demiurge.
Before becoming the Overlord, Suzuki Satoru was the leader of one of the top guilds in Yggdrasil. That's no easy feat. You have to be smart, charismatic, and dependable so that people choose to follow you in such an environment. He might not have had the IQ of Demiurgus, yet he was an ace at gathering, processing, and using data, the testament to which was his victory over Shaltir. Moreover, he memorized almost everything about all denizens of Nazareth in a matter of days, which doesn't necessarily mean that he is smart, but shows that he can retain a lot of information within that shiny skull. The reason for his so-called stupidity is very simple. He's just not thinking that far ahead or at all sometimes, because let's be real, when he does use the void between his temples, everything goes according to Keikaku. Shaltir's fight and its cover-up, Cocytus and Lizardman, or anything else where Ainz-sama decided I'ma go to place X and do Y. Look at how he handled Ainzak and dwarves. Textbook execution of come in, establish yourself in a common interest, inspire / call to action. He wasn't Rimuru's speech, which
high on those charisma stats,
was mostly carried by vibes. No, he went from being scary and untrustworthy to respectable and we will leave our own country with you in a matter of a single conversation. That's impossible for an average Joe. And the thing is, if you were to watch Overlord without hearing his inner monologue or an occasional I don't get it gag, you'd think that Maruyama made a few spelling mistakes in the name Aizen and won't question his intelligence at all.
That's fair.
Which is interesting, because sometimes I think that Satoru's mind is trapped believing that it's him making decisions while Momonga, the ruler of Nazareth, is actually in control.
That is interesting. It could be cool to watch a cut where, you know, you don't get that inner monologue, where you're literally just seeing what everybody else, you get everybody else's inner monologue, you get to see what everyone is saying about him and to him and what he says in return, but you don't get to see his like thoughts of like, what? That is interesting. That's cool.
It's not all sunshine and rainbows though. When you are a leader whose wisdom and planning seem to transcend common understanding, everything you say or do is going to be interpreted accordingly. Ainz literally can't make a joke or a sarcastic remark without people around him taking it super seriously.
Yep.
Case in point, him crashing the Colosseum party. He says, quote, "Coincidence is such a scary thing," which from his point of view was, "Hey bro, fancy meeting you here," but from Jircniv's, it was a disaster of biblical proportions. I mean, in that situation, pretty much any line would have been a fatality, so maybe that wasn't the best example, but it was certainly the funniest. Speaking of whom, Ainz is a very clever character with a little twist on the archetype. Overthinking with a side of crippling paranoia.
Aww,
the latter can be explained with the big bony brother constantly watching him, as per my video on Season 1 Overlord items, surveillance spells aren't perfect and make the victim feel like they are being watched.
Oh.
Thinking too much though, that's just how he is, and ironically, that's his biggest flaw. Remember his ride in the carriage where he decided to vent for a second? He asked if it was all his fault, and honestly, it kinda is. He didn't know any better, since in all history he knew of, no spell caused that much devastation, yet it was him asking the Sorcerer King to show off his power, which resulted in panic, many people quitting, and political instability in the Empire. If he just chilled out and started working with the Sorcerer King right from the get-go, he and Bahar'uth in general would have been prosperous and perfectly safe, because if someone was to go against them, that would have been threatening a friend of Ainz, which—
See, that's what I was saying the whole time! Granted, I get why he doesn't, like, why you wouldn't want to necessarily work with someone like Ainz, right off the bat, but my sweater's in the way. It's fine. Get out. It's a cool sweater, but it's in the way. Ignore that. Ignore me. It's fine.
Which means certain death. Instead, he says that if this monster decides to destroy them, there is no guarantee of mercy even if they surrender. Yet in his righteous urge to save humanity, he forgets or does want to think about the fact that if the Supreme One wanted to destroy him, he would have done so. Ainz even later dismisses Baziwood.
Yes, use that Alistair, baby.
What a strange name. Hitting the nail on the head about the Sorcerer King, not on the head. Wanted to destroy him, he would have done so. Ainz even later dismisses Baziwood. What a strange name. Hitting the nail on the head about the Sorcerer King not having anything planned, as he can't fathom the thought of Ainz not being after him. We often see that he's interpreting other people's actions based on how he himself would have acted.
I mention that a lot.
When you're dealing with someone of similar intelligence in a similar position. Like when Demiurgus predicted what Jircniv would do after visiting Nazarick, and how the Emperor suggested destroying a kingdom to make an example. Lucky for him, it was Riestes and not Bahar'uth, because unlike their government, he got the memo very quickly and did everything in his power to negotiate with the Sorcerer Kingdom. Which can also be a source of his paranoia, since our squad had every right and might to demand anything from them as compensation for practically invading the tomb, but chose to pardon the entire thing after a frog with glasses did something impolite. That's such a power move that would work especially well against a smart person whose ego is not that high. The bloody emperor, although a leader of a country, is comparatively humble and, as we were shown, does question his own intelligence, which led to him assuming that Ainz is playing him like a fiddle, resulting in the best possible decision of submitting to Nazarick as a vassal state.
Yep.
The next intellect archetype we'll cover is a bit more conventional and belongs to our lovely guardians Albedo and Demiurgus. Surprisingly, they're the most boring, for the lack of the better word, as they represent your regular run-of-the-mill I'm smarter than everyone else. Not to be confused with Philip, who we'll surely talk about, because unlike his double-digit IQ ass, theirs is around 200, which is utterly fucking bonkers. They are a definition of planning around the plan that they're planning around our plan. Nothing gets past them, except for one thing. Well, technically two. Absolute brain-dead stupidity and whatever Bone Daddy is thinking. Actually, I may have lied about them considering themselves the smartest, as this level of intellect implies a certain amount of self-doubt when compared to the likes of them or the Supreme Ones, yet you can certainly tell that they expect 99.9% of people to be dumber than they are. pretty standard for an anime villain, minus the fact that they are incredibly competent, even going as far as to suppress their disgust with humans in order to rule them effectively, and truth be told, significantly improving their lives.
They do that. This is true, especially in Carne Village. Like, the way that they, like, yeah. I don't know. The more that, like, I watch these sort of, like, background videos, the more I'm like, yeah, I love these people. I love these characters. And then, like, I'll go back and watch an episode and I'm like, God, they suck, don't they? But they're, like, I mean, they're really well-written characters.
One interesting thing I will mention though is that I totally adore their dynamic. Like in the scene where Albedo told Demi that the Empire now wants to be a vassal state, she sent him on an emotional roller coaster by saying Ainz is thinking your plan isn't good, but he still trusts you, and so on and so forth. It was very amusing. What isn't
Demi,
particularly amusing is what Renner does in her spare time. If you know, you know. She is another somewhat common archetype that is surprisingly popular in movies. Intelligent psychopath. In case you're wondering, neither Demiurgus nor Albedo fall in this category, as they do feel emotions, are very responsible, and have deep attachments. Just look at this dude wagging his tail waiting to be praised. That's not psychopath behavior, they're just evil. The princess, on the other hand, fits the description of clinical psychopathy to a T, which is only worsened by her ridiculously high IQ. Why is that? Well, this mental condition comes with many traits: insincere charm, manipulation of others, lack of guilt or remorse, etc. But the one that we need is getting easily bored. High intelligence also has this side effect, and it can be easily proved with a very observable pattern. The smarter the animal is, the worse it does in captivity. A restless mind requires constant stimulation, and if there is no way to satisfy it, big brain animals descend into depression, madness, or next life. Pair that with psychopathy, and you get a person who is so damn bored that they'd do anything to get out of that state. This is partially why Renner joined Nazarik's crew. Her current environment was too predictable, and she could read people or situations they create like the back of her hand. So, it's only natural that when the opportunity to do something interesting, as well as fulfill her wishes and become immortal, presented itself, it wasn't even a question.
I am very interested for the season 5 to see what demon Renner is gonna do, cause she was terrifying as a human, so checking her out as a demon is going to be, I cannot wait.
She got everything she wanted, and one of those things is something she doesn't even realize. Ainz. He is such a curveball that Renner, with all her mental capabilities, can't understand him whatsoever, and it terrifies her, which is arguably the best thing for somebody who suffered their entire life from shit being too predictable. I love how she's written, and the greatest part is that people around her, those of above average intelligence of course, are pretty aware of it. Even Jircniv, a dude from very far away, was able to deduce that she's messed up based on her actions. Real quick, for those of you who question if it's possible for a person with inability to build emotional attachment to have such an obsession over climb, I can confirm that it is, with the best possible analogy I can give being a pair of favorite shoes. They don't make you feel butterflies in the stomach, or I hope not, but you love wearing them because they are so comfy. Now, let's bring it down a notch.
I mean, for me at least, her obsession with climb was like, it's an ownership thing. Like, she's like, he loves me, he'll do anything for me. Like, having that kind of hold over somebody, I feel like would be incredibly intoxicating to someone like Renner, because you know, she's had a lot of people like sycophants and like people who would just do what she wanted because she's a princess before, but Climb is like the first person who she's like, he would do this even if I wasn't like a powerful like royal. And I think she clocked pretty quick just what he'd be willing to do for her, and that really, she really likes that. And she likes the idea of someone being just specifically loyal just to her, not to the kingdom, not to her father, not to her brother, not to anybody else. The loyalty to her being exclusive and explicit. And I think that would really get her goat. I think she would really, really like that. Not necessarily a comfort thing, but like a power thing, you know? At least that's what I took from it. All right. I know I said that I wasn't going to get a drink, but it's like a mango chai iced tea thing. I don't know. I was dying.
And talk about characters who are just smart. Prince Zanuck and Marquise Raven. They're pretty comparable in the intelligence department, which is probably why they managed to get along so well and were planning the bright future of their country. I'm not kidding, they were the only people in the Riestes government who both could and wanted to make this kingdom great. Ramposa, for instance, was a good king in terms of his morals and such, but he ultimately failed as a ruler given the condition their country is in.
A little bit, yeah.
To make amends by offering his head, which could have achieved many things, like preventing the power struggle for the throne, taking responsibility Ainz style, and maybe stopping the war from happening. Zanuck, however, understood exactly what was going on and what position they were in. He didn't give up, proceeded to hold the kingdom together, and even parlayed with the Sorcerer King. Yep. One can say he stopped the invasion, since Ainz was about to recall his forces after their conversation, yet human stupidity struck again. This was a much more kingly thing to do in comparison to how Raven responded. Complete shutdown.
Yep,
I can't even
he
blame
lost
him.
his mind.
He saw some serious shit and concluded that there is nothing that can be done. It's what this story is all about. How would people handle the threat of an evil overlord? Zanuck and Raven are the
we're about to find out.
prime examples of two routes that can be taken here. Resist until the bitter end, or count your losses and accept your fate. There are other options, of course, but what's fascinating is how many characters in the show do submit while still holding on to the idea that one day the plan will come together and they will be victorious, until they see enough carnage to learn that it's all futile. Learning is also something Overlord handles really well. For example, I can hardly call Shaltir or Cocytus dumb, yet it was painfully obvious that they aren't exactly natural when it comes to strategic thinking.
I mean, I feel like Annie News calls Shaltir dumb a lot. So I don't think she'll be too mad about it.
In light of that, Ainz decided to teach them by creating a challenge that required a certain amount of brain usage. People outside Nazarick are doing that too, although they pay a much higher price for that usually. Like when Clanlord Per Yoro, who all things considered is one of the best leaders in the story, lost 80% of his people for not accepting the Sorcerer King's mercy. I understand that he was pressed for time and that it would have been hard to get 60k Quago to submit to some skeleton, but he should have put the following together. This is only half of the invaders that were supposed to be greeted by dragons, meaning that they dealt with whoever they met and still decided to split their forces. You can't even assume that they're stupid for doing that, because again, they must have dealt with at least a dragon on their way here. Well, he fucked up. So let's go over a few good examples of conventional...
I mean, he might have thought that the dragons took care of half of them. So, like, that's possible?
...intelligence this anime showed us. Enfi, realizing that Momon and Ainz gone are the same person. It wasn't that difficult considering he alone knew of Albedo being involved with both of them, but I do like the quick thinking, just like when he explained his reasons for hiring a no-name adventurer. Lizard people. They might live a primitive lifestyle, yet they have a lot of practical smarts in addition to begrudgingly listening to their experienced peers. Slaying theocracy. They honestly surprised me with their ability to put information together and make educated guesses, like bringing up that Momon, Ainz Gon, Honyu Pinyoko and Yaldabaoth might be working together. They quickly dismissed it, but hey, at least
the idea was there.
There are many
magic
other
Catholics.
examples. The Dwarf's arc alone has so much negotiations and decision making that it will take an entire video. So instead, I'll quickly compliment something I usually criticize in many shows: reconnaissance and info gathering. Here, everybody above triple digit IQ does it, and it fills my heart with joy. Not everybody has an IQ that high, and what better example to use than Riestes nobles? Argumentative, arrogant, selfish, and irresponsible. These are the types of people who can't see the forest behind the trees and who won't believe that 2 + 2 = 4 just because it was said by a kid. No amount of learning will save them. And the apex of such humans is this specimen, Philip Montserrat. Boy, you have to actually try to be this stupid, as not only does he not think even a step further, but the actions he does take make so little sense that it took me 3 whole watch-throughs to fully understand what he was doing.
Oh, good. He's going to explain to me what he's doing, because I also don't really understand what Philip was up to. But also there were some of those things that I know that the anime kind of cut for time a little bit. Like they kind of glossed over some of it. Anyway.
Just think about it for a second. To rob a cargo from a kingdom whose leader killed more than 100,000 soldiers with one spell. Not to go hide and launder it, but to resell at a lower price. That's the equivalent of going into the royal treasury, showing yourself on camera, grabbing the biggest diamond they have, and trying to sell it at your local pawn shop. His colleagues at least accounted for this endeavor going south by scapegoating Philip, who didn't even consider this plan not working perfectly. I'm not giving them any credit, just so we're clear, because these two absolute melons sat down, calculated the Sorcerer Kingdom's manpower, and agreed that if the war was to happen, their domains would be far enough from the front. I don't know what kind of math or meth they used, and I don't want to know, as even thinking about it makes me feel like I'm losing brain cells. What I will add, though, is that between this imbecile and Renner, he is arguably worse, cause unlike the princess who sold out the country intentionally, Philip had no idea what he was doing and never understood that it was all his fault. It was I, Mahis, risking brain damage into the microphone. Have a great whatever time of the day you have. Until next time, cheers.
Cheers. Okay, so he just says that he forgot to hear. I'll let y'all listen to that because that was kind of funny, and I did the exact same thing like 2 days ago.
Whatever time of the day you have. Until next time, cheers. Rotny колбасу, I forgot to press the record button. An entire hour gone. No, it wasn't gone. It was a rehearsal. Yeah, it was a rehearsal.
Yep. I did that the other day. On a different video, on an Americans Learns video. It was like an interview with Flora Johnson, and I forgot to press record. So like 30 minutes of just me talking to myself in my studio. I did not do a re-recording of that yet, though, so I may or may not. I don't know. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. Thanks for suggesting this as well. I appreciate it. And again, this is fun. I know I've watched a Mahis video before and I enjoyed it. So thank you for pointing it out, for suggesting it. Keep those suggestions coming. And I will see you in the next episode. Don't forget to go and check out our other videos and stuff. And tell us what other kind of things that we could do. Like, do you want us to do more English stuff? Or what do you want? What do you want? Anyway, thanks. Bye.